And scholars now know how to correlate the Maya calendar with our own calendar. We know that the 13 Baktun cycle end date falls precisely on December 21st of 2012.
The long count develops to a much greater degree in certain sites, a lesser degree in others. Some sites will only utilize the 260-day count, and most of their hieroglyphic inscriptions do not incorporate the long count. Other sites will develop even more complex cycles, such as the 819-day cycle that Palenque develops. The calendar is manipulated and utilized in different sites to a different degree. But we can say that throughout the Maya world, that system was prevalent during the middle to late classic period, it being abandoned shortly after the decline and subsequent abandonment of some of these great sites.
Why did the Maya pick 2012 to end this vast cycle of 13 Baktuns? For the Maya, the important thing always happens at the end of the cycle. So at the end of the cycle, you have this galactic alignment. Now, my approach to the galactic alignment has been to look into the Maya traditions and try to understand how the Maya encoded this galactic alignment into their core traditions, such as the Maya creation mythology, the ball game symbolism, other Maya traditions such as king-making ceremonies. And what I found is that the December solstice sun and the Milky Way and these different features, these astronomical features that are involved in the galactic alignment. For example, there's a feature called the dark rift, the great cleft in the Milky Way. This is precisely where the December solstice sun is going to be converging with the Milky Way, at the dark rift. These astronomical features are front and center in the Maya creation mythology.
For a long time already, we've been aware of the fundamental aspects of the epigraphy and the writing system of the Maya involved calculations of time, and those were determined to be related to astronomical cycles. So we understand from a very early time that astronomy was very influential in the creation of an ideology.
One of the ways that the ancient Maya encoded their understanding of cosmology, including precession and including the galactic alignment, was through mystery play. Like, for example, the mystery play of the Maya creation myth. It has to do with the ball game and how the hero twins must kick the ball into the goal ring. Well, the Maya populace could come to see the mystery play, and they would observe that, and you could just sort of understand it in the literal way of the play unfolding before you. But to those who are sensitive to the deeper esoteric or symbolic meaning in the mystery play, they would know that the game ball is a symbol for the December solstice sun, and when the hero twins are trying to kick the game ball into the goal ring being the dark rift in the Milky Way, the whole mystery play and the ball game is a story that encodes the galactic alignment process.
A number of hieroglyphic inscriptions situated throughout the Maya world tell us that the concept of creation was a pan-Maya phenomenon. Each site, it seems, had their own version of that mythology. In this way, we see that there is a kind of uniqueness to each site, but still maintain a very strict adherence to a philosophy that was universal. And so we can say that Palenque, for example, developed a complex relationship to those ancestral deities and that moment of creation, and expressed it in a beautiful way, a way that was unique to Palenque.
The Maya have a concept of a sacred tree, or a crossroads. It's basically the cross formed by the Milky Way where it crosses over the ecliptic. The ecliptic is the path followed by the sun, moon, and planets. So in the sky you have this cross. It's also referred to as the sacred tree. And it manifests in Mayan symbolism and iconography. For example, at the classic period site of Palenque, the great ruler Pakal was buried, and his sarcophagus lid has a very famous carving on it, and it depicts him falling into the underworld at death. He's basically entering the dark rift. So the dark rift is at the center of the sacred tree formed by the Milky Way and the ecliptic, and it's right there on his sarcophagus lid. The Maya kings were shamanistic. Pakal is seen to be a kind of visionary shaman figure, and the shaman had to journey into the cosmic center. That's where he was able to retrieve the sacred power of rulership. So that image of Pakal on his sarcophagus lid is not simply an after-death image, it's an image of the shaman journeying into the cosmic center, into the dark rift, to retrieve the sacred otherworldly powers of rulership.
One of the most important temples here in Palenque is the Temple of Inscriptions. That's the tomb of the most important king of the city, Pakal, and it's one of the most beautiful temples in all the Maya world.
Going hand in hand with visionary shamanism, which was a sort of a journeying into the outer cosmos in a spiritual sense, was an interest in the actual astronomical sky. At Palenque, near the palace, the famous square palace building, in that complex of buildings there are several very interesting areas. They're like courtyards. They're sort of like rectangular areas that are surrounded by walls about 3 feet high. It's now believed that these were once filled with water, and Mayan astronomers and visionary calendar priests would sit around this, and at night the sky would be reflected in the still, calm water of these rectangular pools. This is how the Maya did their stargazing. It's very, very interesting because instead of looking up at the sky, they were looking down at the sky reflected in the water. Very, very interesting because for the Maya, the sky at night was envisioned as the underworld flipped upside down. So all the stars and the planets that are moving around and doing alignments in the sky were actually the activities and movements of the underworld deities. This is a really interesting idea because it shows how apparent opposites like sky and underworld are integrated in the Mayan concept.
While the majority of Mayan scholars have focused on classic sites in Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras, John Major Jenkins has devoted much of his research to the once obscure site of Izapa in southern Mexico. There he found a great number of stelae, stone monuments, depicting the mythology and cosmology of the Maya.
The early Maya site called Izapa, the site that invented this long count calendar that gives us the 2012 end date, is really a key to understanding how the early Maya thought of 2012 and the galactic alignment. The monuments of Izapa were found in the 1950s and 60s as they were left some 1800 years ago, so they're in situ. They're still oriented to certain horizons in certain ways. One of the key horizon alignments at Izapa is the December solstice sunrise. So we start to see how Izapa is a site that helps us understand the galactic alignment in 2012. For example, Stela 11 from Izapa portrays Wanhunapu, the father of the hero twins. He represents the December solstice sun. And he's emerging from the upturned mouth of a frog. That's the rebirth place. The mouth of the frog or the mouth of the snake, that represents the dark rift. His arms are outstretched, and it's basically a period measuring gesture. He's basically measuring a cycle of time. So what this is